Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who are sharing their insights and wisdom so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions. We help businesses scale their revenue through outside-the-box visibility strategies. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're really excited to have you here. We're in for a fantastic conversation today with my guest. Please stay to the end because we have a special gift for you. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to my guest today as we deep dive into this, like I said, incredible conversation, Katie Mineck with DigitalOwl. So welcome, Katie, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to chat with you. So Katie, can you share a little bit about who you are, DigitalOwl, and your role within it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've made my career in software as a service companies for the last 15 years and really helped grow the customer success arm. So my role at DigitalOwl is a vice president of customer success. DigitalOwl is an AI platform that really helps transform medical record summarization. So I'm excited to talk with you about that.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. How have trends let's do this one. DigitalOwl is working to integrate AI and help companies scale. So how are you integrating AI to automate personalization at scale?
Yeah, good question. So I think I kind of want to take this question a step back too. I think when people hear about AI, they have something in mind, right? When you think about that, I hear it's the buzzword in a lot of parties and just, thinking about like, what's the future of work look like with AI? And today, AI doesn't exist without personalization, right? So it really is only as strong as the people using it and the people trying to generate it. So we really emphasize at DigitalOwl that we are not trying to give the answer. We're trying to help give simplification to the framework that you're using today. So if you are in a position where, you had somebody reading through medical records page by page, we're trying to just make that process easier. We're not trying to be the decision maker in that process. And I think that's the biggest thing as you think about using AI. Is what is the goal of using that tool? Are you really trying to replace the person, or are you trying to enable the person? And that's really where AI is today. It's at the point of enablement and personalization, not replacement.
So for companies hesitant about AI, because you just shared the benefits of it and the importance of knowing why you're using AI, for those companies who are possibly still hesitant, because we know they're out there, what low risk entry points would you recommend to improve customer success outcomes?
I think the overwhelming and nice part is that most of the softwares that we are comfortable using today have come out with some form of AI. Right. So you have note takers, you have summarization tools, you have calendar enhancers, you have open source AI options that you can go and look at and ask general questions. Like I laugh, an early adopter in our family was actually my mother-in-law. She used ChatGPT to go in and actually create letters for the kids written in a Harry Potter voice. Right.
That's fun.
I know. She used it before any of us, right? So early adopter. So that's just to show how accessible some of these tools are. So I think if there is kind of an uncertainty about AI, I think, which is easy to have, get your feet wet, right? Start using some of these open source tools, take advantage of those little buttons on the side of each of the softwares that you're already using that says, try this AI tool. I will also say, I think there's a fear factor component that comes along with some of the regulatory groups that companies are using today. Those regulatory groups are often behind in thinking about how to anticipate the tech that's coming. So a lot of the language and a lot of the verbiage that's being used when thinking about adopting a more broad AI strategy is already outdated. It does tend to, AI is moving faster than the regulatory groups can move. So do your best to get your feet wet, try it yourself, and try not to listen too much to the noise.
Yeah, that's great advice, Katie. I know when the AI was really sweeping, through about a year and a half ago, I was like, I'm not ready to jump in. And then I got my feet wet, just like you said to do. And you just kind of dabble and have some fun with it. Right. And then, but if you're a company who wants to grow and scale, you don't really have a choice. You need to get on board the AI bandwagon or you will be left behind. It's not going anywhere. And I think, so thank you for all of that. So what are the most significant shifts in customer success priorities that you've observed over the past few years And how are leaders leaning into those changes?
This is a super interesting question because if you would have asked 20 years ago, right, about the position of customer success really didn't exist, like in the form that it did, right? It was just an extension of operations. And so now you're looking at the last few years, which arguably have been incredibly volatile, right? Like for the tech industries, there's not been a space, right, especially post-pandemic, that hasn't looked very up and down, especially in the customer success world. If you look at some of the market research trends related to customer success, there was a period shortly after the pandemic where a lot of the funding for customer success programs really went away or dropped significantly, right? It was like, maybe we don't need this. You're seeing in the last couple of years a huge rebound in customer success infrastructure and funding, right? So a lot of the companies are realizing like, oh, we actually did need that because those are the people who were taking care of our customers, and our customers still need that level of consultation. So customer success has kind of fully grown back to where it was and then some, right? You're seeing customer success at the forefront of renewal conversations, long-term plans for success and value realization. Without those teams, especially in a SaaS organization, you're just going to see the customer trajectory start to plateau. And so what you want to see is that continual evolution of growth. If you start to hit that plateau marker, then you probably need some investment in your customer success strategy.
So as startups scale, let's talk about startups specifically. What systems and workflows are most critical to ensure customer success doesn't become a bottleneck?
Yeah, good question. So, because there is a change management internal, right, as well as external. So the customer success piece, I like to think of customer success a little bit like the canary in the coal mine, right? So if you're starting to see a bottleneck in customer success, there's probably inefficiencies happening on the product side, on the support side, on your contracting team, something that's kind of like happening, but you're going to see that all converge at the customer success piece. And so something that you can do is use that customer success evolution and that customer journey to really kind of map out like how much time the customer is spending in each phase of that journey, and then really kind of dig into those. Again, customer success is the symptom to really identify and diagnose like how to ensure that the customer again is kind of moving beyond those barriers that you're seeing.
So Katie, you've led remote or teams, so teams in general. So how do you foster culture, connection, and healthy boundaries in a distributed work environment?
Mentality is huge in this question, right? So there's actually an old book, well, it's old now, by Daniel Pink called Drive. And it was right at the time where management was starting to consider that maybe work looked different from 9 to 5. And this is before the evolution of a mostly remote workforce, but it really was leaning into the idea that people have an intrinsic motivation to want to do well. And if you as a management strategy have defined that as the precipice by which you're going to be leading your teams, that means that you're leaning on trust and you're leaning on the idea that people have an innate skill to be able to want to thrive and do good at their jobs, right? People aren't showing up every day because they want to do a bad job, right? So if that is the pillar that you're leaning into to be able to build your customer success strategy or your remote workforce, then I think that goes a long way. You also have to be very mindful about the meetings that you have. So how often are you talking to your team? What is the tone that the team has? What do they wake up with? What do they walk away with at the end of the day? What's the last thing they hear before they go on vacation? What's the last thing they leave for the weekend? Because that's when we process whether we like where we work and how we're going to then show up for work the next day and what kind of energy we're going to put in. So there's a couple of different things. We do use internal chat mediums to also celebrate wins. You can also look for team meetings, make sure you have regular one-on-ones. We have company standing meetings that are bi-weekly to be able to foster a broader culture, not just within our silo, but with the organization. And if we can, in person is always great.
Yeah, you're the first person that's ever said that be mindful and aware of what's the last thing they're hearing when you leave for the weekend and also when they leave for vacation. I've never heard that before. And I think it's very intriguing and interesting because you're right. That's when people have their downtime and they're like, what am I doing on Monday? I'm going back to work. Is this really where I want to be? Yeah.
Any of those large life milestones are also going to be critical into that equation. We tend to forget about the interpersonal aspect of management, but on customer success, it's pretty crucial for your customers, but also for your internal employees. And for your internal employees, there's a direct correlation between how they're doing and how your customers are doing. So if your internal culture has some ups and downs and some bumps, you're going to see that in your revenue stream as well. So they're parallel. You need to make sure that they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, we always hear about celebrating the wins, how important that is, but you just shared some other important pieces as well. So I thank you for that. What practices, Katie, have you embraced personally to maintain balance and avoid burnout while scaling a customer-driven organization?
Yeah, burnout is such an interesting term, right? Because again, we've heard a lot about it, especially in the last couple of years. When I hear somebody talk about burnout, I do hear somebody talk about a lack of awareness of their own boundaries, right? I think work is always going to have challenges and it's always going to have ups and downs. So it's really about how do you put things in place to navigate that. Me personally, like I know that I'm going to have certain demands in my life at certain hours of the day, right? Like it has to be carved out into my calendar to be able to say, like, this has to be kind of sacred time. And in some cases, I can be flexible. In some cases, I can't. I know when that's the case. Basic things, but also things we easily forget. When do I shut my phone off at the end of the day? When do I start with my phone in the beginning of the day? How often do I exercise? What am I eating? Like, how am I protecting my own mental well-being if I can foresee that I have a crazy calendar, right? Those kinds of things and just living that in balance, I think is really, really important. If you hear somebody talk about balance, but then they talk about like, but then I wasn't sleeping very well and I was leaning in too much on these topics or I was spreading myself too thin, that's not balance, right? Yeah. We need to take a step back and make sure that you kind of preserve that even time for things that really refill your bucket.
Yeah, so good. So, Katie, looking ahead, what trends in AI-driven scaling, remote work, or customer-led growth are you most excited about? And how is DigitalOwl preparing for them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously being an AI company, I am pretty excited to see where some of our technology advances are going, but also how that plays into the conversation in the market. Like my past few industries have really been what I would call kind of legacy industries. And we're really at the point now where change has to happen, right? We have a change in our workforce. We have a change in our hiring strategies. If you're posting a job right now, you're probably getting thousands of applicants, not all of them super qualified. And so that's got to change then. Our conversation about how we approach our candidate pool, how we drive enablement internally, especially with the remote workforce. And I like change. I know that is like not always something that people welcome. I have a very like open arms approach to change and that's why I do tend to flock towards the companies that I have because they're disruptors and they're trying to make change in different spaces. And that's how we have to evolve. And it's kind of interesting to see what's going to stick.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to chat with you about growth a little bit, Katie. So as far as DigitalOwl goes, or just in your history with the companies you've worked with, what challenges have you faced in growing as you're scaling and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, for sure. So the couple of different things, again, given different times, but some of the growth does tend to be impacted by the state of the economic world, right? Like what's happening outside of your conversation with the organization, right? Are they in a stable financial position? Like, are they concerned about anything coming up? And then how do you anticipate like that there's going to be things that you can't anticipate effectively? So what we're doing on our side is, again, we look for little conversations and trends. Again, I mentioned kind of the regulatory systems, especially around AI, right? What do those conversations look like and how do they mirror what we're actually doing? How can we offer consultation and value realization to those customers to say, I know this is where you're at, but this is kind of where you need to be. This is how we'll help you get there. And we're small enough, at least at DigitalOwl, to be able to offer that kind of consultation. But it's something that if you can't bake it into your existing like customer journey, how can you help customers through that? What is the third party groups or people that you can kind of help advise to step in to help customers through that? Because like we said, change is hard, but necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. I know change scares a lot of people or makes them nervous and can paralyze them. But if you embrace it, I mean, it's going to happen at some point or another, right? We get to pivot and evolve. And for those of you listening, if you're CEOs and founders, especially if you're with a startup, there's going to be evolution happening. And it's important that you're able to ebb and flow with it. And because there's always going to be challenges and making quick decisions, whether it's the right one or the wrong one, you're going to know fast, right?
Yep.
So making quick decisions is important. So Can you share with us who your ideal customer is, for those of our listeners that are wondering? And two, how are you getting in front of them? AI, this is a, fast-paced world. It's a crowded space. So how are you standing out? How are you being visible to make sure that you're getting in front of the people that you can help, the businesses that you can help?
Good question. So I think the customers that I would idealize as like our ideal customer is someone who identifies a problem, right? Especially in our space, it's where they identify a problem with their strategy for reviewing medical records. And they're saying something's not going to work long term, right? They're looking at their list of goals and they're saying, we've got a problem. Like, we're not going to be able to hit this goal, or this is a stretch goal that I can't foresee how we're going to get there. And so they start to look outside of their organization for solutions to say, how can I fix this? We are getting in front of our ideal customers by being available. So we are at a number of conferences where we will see our potential customers. We're making it a point to be on the ground where we think our customers are going to be. We also have a very large LinkedIn presence, right? So we try to have a good marketing strategy, a good outward reach to the market, and then word of mouth, right? Good customers foster good customers. Everybody talks in our industry. So if we do a good job with one person, they're going to hear about it from somebody else. Because even the companies that are in competition with each other still share the similar goals, right? And to some degree, they do meet in the middle, because it doesn't behoove anybody to see somebody go under or struggle in that way. We all want to win when it comes to at least creating efficiencies. So that's how we're trying to get out there.
Amazing. So what's next for DigitalOwl? Like what are your goals for the next, say, 12 months?
Yeah, so for us, we are continually improving our customer success strategy, which it's near and dear to my heart. The things like taking it, again, we're a newer company, right? So that means we've got to evolutionize, or I don't even know if that's a word. We need to evolve our strategy from the initial renewal strategy all the way up to what's our value realization once a customer has been with us for 2 to 3 years, right? Like, what's our strategy then? Like, what products are they ready for? What's that crawl, walk, run? We've kind of gotten customers through that initial like crawl to walk stage, and now how do we take them into like a full walk to run stage? And that's really where our heads are at.
Well, I like the word evolutionize. So if it's not a word and y'all want to use it, if you're listening, let's run with it. Let's make it happen. And we'll give Katie, you get the credit.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
So if I could give you a magic wand, Katie, and you could wave it over one challenge you're having right now, one issue that could hold you back from achieving the goals that you just shared, what would that be, where you can go poof and take it away, and why?
Yep. Simply put, I think that fear of change, that we just talked about, if I could kind of help show people, I think there's a change fatigue in the market. I think that people are bombarded with different vendors to use and different sources to read and things to listen to. If I could help streamline and simplify the messages to people to say, here's noise, here's effective strategy planning, and just help make it not feel so overwhelming for people, I think then people could move a lot faster. So taking away that adverse reaction when you hear about something that needs to change, I think would be a huge turning point for folks, especially as they look to adopt and grow.
Thank you. That's amazing. What my last question is, if we could bring you back in 12 months, revisit this conversation, Katie, what does success look like for you in DigitalOwl?
It's a really good question. And it's similar to when I asked like one of the founders that I worked with a couple years ago, and I was like, what's your plan? What's your plan like in 2 to 3 years? And he kind of laughed at me and he's like, I can't think that far ahead. It's a little bit similar, right? So success in a year, I can envision based on what I know today to mean that, we will have more of a definitive structure around AI, especially open source tools, right? Some things that are currently considered unstable or not certain, we're going to have more of a plan around those things. I imagine that there's going to be a lot of small startups or small entrepreneurs that are getting out there and creating workshops and conversation mediums to be able to help enable people to feel empowered to be able to talk about AI. I imagine that will become commonplace. And I'm thinking that we will be able to leverage those tools similar to how we've used, some of our enablement strategies in the past. So I think in a year, some of the things that we're considering like pretty cutting edge, we're going to be so far beyond. And maybe we will be talking about ideas about, how to solution as opposed to just enable. And that would be pretty exciting.
That would be exciting. So,
Yep.
Katie, can you share with everyone listening how they can reach out to you, connect with you, and learn more about Digital Owl?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to reach me. And I'm actually one that does read my LinkedIn messages. So you're welcome to send me a message and I'm happy to discuss it with you.
Perfect. So make sure if you're listening to us, make sure that you go and check out Katie, connect with her, let her know you heard her here at the Business Growth Spotlight podcast. If you're watching Katie and I on YouTube, thank you. We're excited to have you here with us. Leave her a comment, drop a comment below. And there's also a button on here that says subscribe. We'd love for you to click it and subscribe to the channel. That allows us to alert you when we have more guests coming on, just like Katie is here today, sharing their tips and tricks and expertise and wisdom with you on their experience of growth and how they've done it. So they're here supporting you. So make sure that if you know somebody that could be supported by Katie and Digital Owl, please share this with them. The goal of this podcast is to see more businesses flourishing and growing within 5 years than failing. Because right now the rate of that is too high of the failure. So we want to flip the script. And that's why we put with this podcast is here and we're bringing on amazing guests like Katie. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, or any of the others, thank you. We're grateful you're here. Also, if you don't mind, if you can leave a review, if you're able to, 5 stars is awesome. That helps us share this, then push out this podcast to more people, CEOs, founders, and businesses to support them in the growth of their business. I did promise y'all a gift, so I'm going to give that to you right now. If you're looking to grow your visibility, Katie shared some amazing things that they're doing to stay in front of their ideal client customer. If you're looking for some things and you've been trying some things and it's just not getting you to where you want to go ahead and download our Spotlight to Scale blueprint. You can go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint and grab that there. We will have all of Katie's links inside the show notes, but go check out Katie Mineck. It's Mineck, right? On LinkedIn. Go follow her. Let her know you heard her here. And then also go check out Digital Owl. So Katie, thank you for being here today. I'm super grateful for your time. Is there anything that before we wrap up and I let you go that you'd like to share that I didn't get to ask you or we didn't touch on today?
It's a great question. I so appreciate you doing, this kind of podcast and kind of thinking about, how to enable people that are in charge of their growth and trying to control their own destiny. I think the biggest thing is nobody's doing it alone. So just find your network, find your people, find who speaks to, your business and your growth strategy, but also know when to ask for help. So I think that is pretty clutch as opposed to, trying to do it all from scratch. Somebody probably has some insights there and you can lean on them.
Yeah, that is such a good point and a huge gold nugget. And that's kind of like an oxymoron, I think I just said, but it's a huge gold nugget to take away because I know when I started my business, I stepped into entrepreneurship, I think it's 7 years now. I did it alone and I did hit burnout because I didn't have my boundaries, right, set up. And I took a step back, I stepped away. And then I relaunched. I think I've relaunched twice since then, which we often do. And I now brought on help. I have a business partner now and we have a support team and you can't do it alone. It's really impossible to do alone and you shouldn't have to do it alone. So I think that's such a great piece to thank you for that contribution because that was spot on and perfection. So thank you again for listening to Katie and I today on the Business Growth Spotlight. Thank you, Katie, for being a yes to being here. So appreciative. And we look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight.